Oh, so there's an attendees under participants that starts populating. That's
Oh, cool. Oh, Andy's on from the Northern Sun.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the next installment of NACDA's virtual programming lineup. I'm Dana Leroy, Communications Manager for NACDA, and we are glad to have you with us this morning for a sponsored content webinar with RDG Planning and Design. Today's session is called Separators, Facility and Venue Difference Makers, and we have 3 representatives from RDG, Tom Ohle, Jason Blome, and Blaine Perau, to lead the discussion on different key factors that can set your institution apart in terms of facilities and design. Before I hand things over to Tom, a reminder for our live attendees using Zoom to utilize the Q&A button at the bottom of your window and send in your questions for the speakers throughout the presentation, as we will have allotted time at the end to answer them. And with that, Tom, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dana. Yeah, and thanks everyone for joining us. This is a tremendous opportunity. So let's jump in. I really want to hit on, well, 4 things we sort of broke out as an agenda. We want to sort of let you know a little bit about RDG, what makes us tick, what drives us, what we like to do. And then we wanted to let you know we reached out to a lot of your peers, and really today want to dive into that data set of what are those difference makers, what separates. And so we developed a list of 3 questions and we sent them out and solicited responses. So we'll sort of run through that process. And then the meat of the conversation is really what those separators are. You know, we've heard from you and your peers what sets you apart, what you need. And we really, you know, it's in this climate, post-COVID, we really need to be as efficient as possible as we can with all of our resources, all of our effort, our time, our capital. And so what can be those difference makers to bring student athletes onto your campuses, bring fundraising dollars into your coffers. And then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A. And go from there. So jumping into that introduction, I am Tom Ohle, an architect with RDG Planning and Design. I operate in our sports studio, and yeah, great to be here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Blome. I'm a landscape architect with RDG.
Hey, good morning to all. I'm Blaine Perau. I'm a design architect at RDG. Love specializing in sports projects, athletic projects, as well as recreation on campuses across the nation. So excited to be here.
Yeah, so a little bit more about RDG. RDG is very much a Midwestern firm. We operate out of several hubs throughout the Midwest. And then from there, really work nationally within multiple markets. We are very much an interdisciplinary firm. As you notice, we have a landscape architect on the call today. And so we wear a lot of different hats from a services perspective, which can make us a little more unique than some other firms. Meaning we have LA, we have interior designers, we have environmental graphics, as well as artists. As we had mentioned, the 3 of us operate within our sports studio, and we have had the opportunity to work on campuses across the country, projects on junior colleges from NAIA Division I, Division II, Division III. Really, you know, and our portfolio, we believe, is quite impressive. You know, 120 campuses, 220 plus projects, over $5 billion worth of work. And just to sort of say it again, across all divisions of collegiate athletics. So we really understand what the individual unique campus user needs, so we can differentiate for you. And we're very much a purpose-driven organization, and we use the sort of the moniker of CMT, which is create meaning together. We know that we are just a blip on your time frame or on your institution's history, and we want to make that as lasting as possible. And to do that is creating meaning. We know it's the same perspective for you. Most of you have about a four-year turnover with the transfer portal. Maybe it's a little sooner, unfortunately, but we need to create the culture. We need to create the meaning that is lasting, that resonates with the bricks and mortar. And so we just drew in your sort of purpose as well here, just to highlight those things and understand you have those guiding principles. So then jump into that outreach again, to just sort of state it. Very succinctly, we need to make sure we're taking advantage of all of our resources. This is not, we're not working in a vacuum. We've developed a whole kit of parts, a whole content at RDG that we draw from. But we wanted things that are now very much more apropos of this post-COVID world. What are the student athletes saying? And then how do we keep them on campus? How do we get them on campus? And then how do we keep them on campus? And so we dove into that. And again, we reached out to the ADs, associate ADs, and coaches across all those divisions to really hone in on that. And we received about 20 responses. So we're not talking about a huge data set. But it was very informative, and we looked at the commonalities there that can help resonate all the aspects we're hitting on. So these are those 3 questions we sent out, and in our little webinar blurb, we had summarized these questions, but for the most part, they are the same. Focusing on what is the most common aspect folks are bringing up, what are those key pieces, and what are the primary deciders for prospective student athletes. And we know that can be as ambiguous as a shower head or the type of smoothie you have, or a brand of your apparel. And so again, we just want to keep resonating that with you and make our projects richer for you. Anecdotally, the word academics showed up the most among our users, and I thought that was pretty interesting and pretty powerful in this perspective of athletics. And just as a casual note, RDG does have a college and university market that would love to help you out with those academic projects as well. So let's dive into it.
Sure. And I think just as a quick reminder, if you have any questions, just drop them into the question and answer section, and we'll probably grab those at the end in our Q&A section. So any interaction would be appreciated. So I think we intentionally led off with culture. A lot of feedback about this, and the primary question being asked is, what is the program's culture? What's the feel? What's the team environment like? What is the message that's being preached? And does that align with our family values, with where we want our kid to spend the next 4 years, 4 or 5 years, or 2 years? Just depends on the situation of his life. So we'll jump into that. I think one of the quickest and easiest impacts to have is the messaging, is the branding, which we do a significant amount of in-house. But how is the messaging being portrayed within the facility? I mean, something you can control is what those student athletes are seeing, the message that they're reading on the walls, as they're entering the facility, as they're in the performance venue. Just an important aspect of this as well is the flexibility of it, and knowing that coach turnover can be pretty quick in certain divisions. How do we make this flexible? How do we make it compatible with who's coming in and the message that they're preaching, and how we reinforce that? A couple of quick examples of some of the work we've done at St. Ambrose is just really creating a cohesive feel through the facility, reinforcing that branding and that messaging within the locker room space. I think the venue messaging is important too. Within the concourse of what this team is all about, how are the fans interacting? How are the fans buying into what the direction that program is going? And then again, thinking about making it cohesive, there's a palette throughout the whole facility, and how from one space to the next space, it's not different. It's a unified, cohesive message that those athletes are seeing and understanding. I spoke a little bit about the flexibility. I think one of the really powerful ways of showing that messaging or customizing that messaging is digitally. At the University of Minnesota, we found a way to do kind of outside in branding with a digital marquee board. I think there's so much potential for finding ways to customize this to on a recruit visit as they're approaching the facility. You can imagine a special message popping up on the marquee board, quickly created by a marketing team for that recruit that transitions along with them as they're walking into the space. Maybe their highlight films pop in on the big screen on the inside of the lobby. Just special ways to really create that separator, to have that difference that they're not seeing at other facilities.
Yeah, and then we heard or we read, to create this culture, we need to hone in on the student athlete spaces. Again, the amount of time they're spending at our facilities is tremendous, and the impact we can have, and the spatial configurations and the arrangement of those spaces needs to be well thought out. And we need to really think about it from an institution, an athletic department, a team, and a student athlete perspective. And again, to go back, thinking about it across all of the divisions of college athletes, each one of those perspectives is going to be a little different. And we find ourselves honing in on different lockering strategies, whether that's a dedicated locker room for each sport, a shared locker room between sports, a dedicated locker room with a lounge. We know you're going to have officials locker rooms, visiting locker rooms. How do those get incorporated? So it's honing in on the correct strategy to give the student athlete the perspective on your campus that they're being appreciated, that they're being treated as an equal across all of the sports and programs. And then at Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter, Minnesota, their perspective is very much eliminating the barrier or eliminating the difference between a student athlete and a student. So at their campus, we honed in on a lockering strategy that really focuses around a core of amenities and then splits off on two symmetrical corridors, what would be a men's side and a women's side, to really create an equitable resource. And then we pair those locker rooms further to maximize Gustavus resources with a shared toilet and bathroom strategy, such that each locker room is dedicated, but it doesn't have their own dedicated toilets. We're now saving dollars in bricks and mortar by creating those toilet facilities. And again, people can come and go in a public fashion outside of the locker rooms. We can keep the coaches, who could be a different gender, coming into the locker rooms, but then separating them from the toilets. So we're sort of maximizing and we know that has an impact on the student athletes when they come visit campus. And then to build the culture and to resonate with everyone in your community is really celebrating everything you have in your past, honoring those traditions, integrating all of your narrative, whether it's at LSU, using the podiums or the markers within space to celebrate those traditions, celebrate those teams, creating the iconography of utilizing the tiger as an element, or it's going to your professional alums. NCAA has the commercial about 98% of our athletes are not going pro, and that's very much true. And we need to reach out to those to show your prospective student athletes that this is a path if athletics don't work out, and to continue on at LSU. Here it's taking and creating a display case underneath that stair, so that when folks walk in, they can see your national championships. It's using that branding that Blaine described along your walls. It's letting really that culture, that your brand resonate throughout the facility. And then, to further continue it at the University of Florida, it's taking those national championship trophies and putting them right up front, putting them at a window such that when the building is closed, people can still come by and see those in a secure fashion. And it really breeds that culture of success for your institution.
Really. And it gets into that space specific design of, this is what we're all about, right? This is our ultimate goal in a lot of ways, is to celebrate this tradition, where we've been and where we're going. I think another important aspect that we heard a lot about was the family environment. I think families want to know that their kids, their children are going somewhere where they're going to be treated like family, where they're going to have that athletic community to fall back on throughout their career. A big component of that is thinking about the internal family and community of the program, thinking about the athletic department internally, the sports team internally. How do we design in and customize those spaces to build that brotherhood or that community, whether it's an outdoor plaza, whether it's in the dining locations, making them flexible, open, inclusive of a lot of different programs. It's in the lounges and the team meeting rooms, how those build and foster that family feel. And I think also in the housing, in a lot of projects we've recently done or have seen, is that integrating that housing, keeping it close by or directly connected to, really creates that facility that they live at, that they work at, that they train at. Just kind of thinking about how all those things kind of intermix to create that family feel. I'm at Wayne State. Their athletic facility, again, incorporates a lot of these principles and finds a way to, in a lot of ways, building culture as well, with the synergies of all these different functions together, but just really creates that athletic community by having track, by having basketball, by having volleyball, kind of all working together for a common goal. And then I spoke to previously the lounge spaces. How do these lounge spaces feel approachable, feel warm and welcoming, comfortable, and have a living room feel, so that those kids are coming into a space that they're comfortable in, that they can interact in. Team meeting rooms that are dynamic, that are exciting, but also facilitate large group gatherings. They facilitate the whole team coming together for a united purpose.
And then, as Blaine said, housing, we read in the responses multiple times that student athletes are focused on housing. It's like the note said, it's about your second most occupied space that they're going to need. At Mount Marty University, we took the opportunity. These are two separate facilities, but locating the housing right next to the athletic facility really gives the student athlete the perspective of where they're going to be and where they're going to spend the majority of their time. We're taking a 74,000 square foot indoor field house with 200-meter track, turf, 2 basketball courts, and then putting a 25,000 square foot residence hall right next to it. Mix in a little bit of your food, which is right across the way, and you've got a complete picture and very much a scripted visit that you can provide a prospective student athlete. And then there's certainly building all of the community outside. Again, these student athletes aren't all driving themselves. They're coming with the mom and dad. And so we need to hone in on what those spaces are, what that game day experience is. That's the impact that is going to be most seen externally. And that's ramping up the technology. It's creating those kid zones within your basketball arena, within your baseball. In baseball facilities, we always design a wall so that the little kids can throw the baseball against the wall. It's just going to happen, and we need to make sure we have those. And then it's resonating with all your ticketing, whether that's electronic, your food, whether that's all electronic now, and your merchandising, which is resonating with your brand. And then it's making sure you're tying in all of your digital perspectives. Obviously, with post-COVID, we are ramping up everything we do from web streaming to broadcasting. So it's making sure that we have camera locations. They're doing great things with remote cameras now that we can double up for all of your practice needs, as well as get you coverage for your broadcasting needs, and make sure we're hitting on those things. And then thinking about campus partnerships, one aspect of this is that student athletes really need to be touched. There's sort of that triple touch rule here. And we can take advantage of our space by allowing community partners to come in. We could use those as revenue generating spaces, but we also get our network or our reach much more expanded by bringing in conferences from around your geographical region to just really sell your institution. They're going to talk to different parents. They're going to talk to other prospective students and have great things to say if we can offer all of those pieces for them.
And I just want to, sorry, Tom, I just wanted to add in one thing before you jump on this one. How impactful are having fans in the stadium, right? Like as we look at the climate of the last few months, sports have started back up. As we've all seen on TV, the empty stadiums, the empty venues. I think a big key to that is the engagement of that community, the engagement of those fans, and how we continue to fill that venue is this external community getting everybody bought in, I think is a big component to that.
Yeah. Thanks, Blaine. And at Iowa State University, it's creating that lower concourse that provides for all of those external opportunities. It's creating the ability to move the band around the stadium. It's creating the specific key entry points that become those portals and gateways that give the moments for the family to celebrate the success of a student athlete.
Absolutely. And I think what we're seeing again is not just wanting a performance facility designed, it's wanting a facility that really resonates with the values, the desires of that university, of that athletic department. And that's getting into kind of the program specific design aspect. In some recent interactions with athletic departments, there's been a desire to have that specific diagram or that specific concept that really tells their story, that resonates with what they're trying to do. This specific example talks about interconnecting all the different athletic programs in one area, creating a village, if you will, of a connecting path of their shared use spaces, kind of branching off that. This one really focuses on the one team component, right? They're valuing all sports the same, and how one entrance, one celebration of success, if that's the message that's appropriate for the university, that is the design that's specific to them. And then creating that common space that really intermixes them for eating, for dining, for studying, for tutoring space, for academic space, as well as thinking about the value of having how much and how many of our responses did we hear the value of academics? And if that's your story, if that's your culture, finding a party or a diagram that puts that academics front and center, puts it on display and shows its importance as those families are pulling up on the campus for the first time and visiting that facility, what means the most to that institution.
Yeah, Blaine, if you would go back 1 second, I just want
Absolutely.
to riff on that. We're hitting a lot on culture, and just wanted to highlight this project. And for you, when you're out there exploring the best way to put out an RFP on the street, this institution took the opportunity to bring the A&E teams on prior to the RFP, prior to the interview process, to have discussions about your culture, to have discussions about what makes you unique before we, being the A&E firms, presented. And I would say it made this project far more successful and resonated with us. We felt like we knew you so much better than sometimes we kind of blindly, propose different things that we guess might work, but they don't work for everyone. Like some of you are metropolitan, some of you are rural, some of you, we've hit on all the divisions. We need to know what makes you tick. Before we can really try to answer that. So if you do have the opportunity, we greatly appreciate sort of that pre-RFP, or even maybe it's after the shortlist, pre-interview sort of download of your culture. So
absolutely.
As Tom mentioned, uniqueness to your campus is important. We look at the context of the campus and integrate that into the design, whether it's materials or colors. This particular project at Luther College integrated blue synthetic turf, and the football coaches and athletic department really wanted to create a unique story from a recruiting standpoint, so that synthetic turf blue has integrated into it not just your standard rubber infill into the mix. It's got ground up Nike shoes that are integrated into the system, and underneath the synthetic turf is a shock pad to increase the safety for the players. At LSU, creating iconic and memorable spaces using specialty lighting, again, using the campus materials from a contextual standpoint and celebrating the culture of the program. We really want to create Instagram moments for not just the spectators, but also for your prospective student athletes, to enable them to document their visit when they come to campus. They want to be able to share with others what they're seeing and where they've been, and post it to their social.
It's passive recruiting in a lot of ways, right? On the visit, they're taking advantage of these moments that are unique to your institution and
Absolutely.
putting them out there.
And these moments kind of reflect the vibrancy of the university and start to generate a lot of excitement.
That's great. Thanks, Jason. In a similar language, at Loyola University in downtown Chicago, we really emphasized an interaction with kind of that urban community, the connectivity between a basketball practice facility and some performance spaces, as well as volleyball practice facility. The footprint was tight, it's limited. So we found a way to uniquely stack these surfaces, but then also really create a unique moment on the roof, on the green roof of this, and found a way to celebrate and promote the Rambler logo, which can be visible from a lot of buildings around student housing as well. And just finding those unique touches to really create that moment, to create that promotion of the program. At the University of Minnesota, it's really interconnected with downtown Minneapolis. And this project was all about where a lot of the funding was coming from, where a lot of the support was coming from, how to celebrate that connectivity and those two things together. On the lockers in the football locker room, we superimposed the skyline of downtown Minneapolis with backlighting the inside of the locker to kind of create the starry night sky, to really create that special separator moment. The leadership level of the leadership building is visually connected to downtown to show, kind of where your future could be. Where, like Tom said earlier, not everybody is going to go pro in their sport, but they may go corporate. They may go work in downtown Minneapolis, and keeping that on the front of their minds and that connectivity visually, as well as in the lower right-hand corner from the players lounge, the connectivity to their game venue, specifically designed a portal into where they train, into where all the blood, sweat, and tears happen, but then also through a window, which is a little hard to see, but has a direct visual connection to TCF Stadium, where their game venue is. So all that unique interconnectivity between those spaces.
Then probably second to academics, we heard from your peers very much about the whole person. Again, student athletes certainly starts with student, and the sort of the buzz or trend word out there on campuses today is wellness. Focusing in on whether you're hitting on the literal 7 or 8, depending on who you read, capitals of wellness. How do you get that to your student athletes, and how are you showing that to them when they come on campus? At Montana State University, there's sort of two different lines of thought here. One is to create it external to your athletic department. Another one's to create it internal to your athletic department. And here we're utilizing the external method, meaning we're creating a facility that is athletic facility adjacent. It operates around their primary indoor performance venues, but serves the entire student population such that it has their university health partners, which are all of their medical counseling. We know that upwards of 10% of your student athletes are seeking out, probably closer to 20 when you really get to it. 20% of your folks are seeking out counseling services. Sometimes that's easier done than inside of your department. We know most of you are now offering those services, psychological or therapeutic counseling internal, but sometimes folks want to go outside. So we're offering them that resource. And then we're pairing that with all of the academic health sciences that Montana State has going on campus, so that they can see the kinesiology and everything. And then we're breeding that with their fitness and recreation, such that, you know, athletes want to hang out with their friends. They don't always want to do sports. And so we've got to give them that perspective. So again, we're focusing on the whole piece by utilizing an external campus resource and really linking it with a public corridor that becomes that node of activity. And really, they can utilize this space for every student, but it also becomes a key recruiting tool when they look at their prospective student athletes. And then really we need to focus on sort of how do we create that whole person or whole sort of holistic view of a person's life internal to the facility. So now we went external of the program. Now let's go internal of the program, and we look at the specific spaces, focusing in on hygiene and sanitation, and what is that like day to day. Focusing in again, we went through sort of the paradigm of our lockers, but focusing in on what these spaces are, whether we have the space for the lounge or here at Central College, you know, this with their available resources, this is a shared locker room strategy where we can flip the football locker rooms to other sports when they're not being used, by maximizing your high density storage in a much more cost-effective strategy than building all new lockers for everyone. And again, this is another scenario where we're utilizing a shared toilet facility with the lockers such that we can mix genders within those lockering spaces and still provide that efficiency balanced with mixing of gender coaches so that we can provide team moments for halftime, for after practice viewing of videos and things like that. And then it's really making it all stick together. So there's a term in the A&E industry, which is sticky space. And generally it means you're combining all of the resources that keep someone active, keep someone engaged in what they're doing. So we want to incorporate the nutrition and food with a study space, with a rest space, with their practice space, with their performance space, with their social space. And all of those components stick together to keep them in your facility. You know, we're going to hit on this, but every moment counts. We have we need to make sure we're impacting their lives and taking advantage of efficiencies, and creating these lounge and interstitial spaces. Again, that as Blaine hit on, that portal or view into their indoor practice football facility is the lounge that day to day can be used by all the student athletes, but can also be utilized as a closing moment for your prospective student athlete tour, so that you can sell that piece. So again, it's just incorporating all of those pieces to stick them together and making it resonate.
Absolutely. And I think as important as the socializing, as important as the hygiene and sanitization, is the obvious impact that your performance facility has on the mental, on the physical side of the athlete's life, right? It's the importance of sports medicine, the integration of sports psychology in a lot of institutions, the ever-growing importance of rest and recovery, and how much of an impact that has on the performance of the team. And then a lot of the more conventional spaces as well, the strength and conditioning, finding innovative ways to approach that. I think another innovative approach towards kind of that rest and recovery element that we've seen and used in some of our projects is multiple kind of flexible spaces. During meeting time, this is a team meeting room for the running backs. Outside of, after practice or outside of meeting times, the lights are dimmable. The back row seating of this meeting room was customized so that larger student athletes, obviously for the football program, could come in, have their space, have their rest in each team room. The footprint wasn't there for a designated nap space, so we found a way to provide that in a space that otherwise wouldn't have been used in off hours. I think about training. I think about kind of hydrotherapy suites and how they're not just a training suite or hydrotherapy suite. They're a space that connects to the youthfulness of the athlete, that really makes them feel like they're in a dynamic, exciting atmosphere, a vibrant community. This training space really does a lot of unique things that grabs a lot of attention from student athletes, but also performs all the necessary functions that it needs to perform. And always keeping a tab on the rest and recovery trends as a component of the wellness. How are people looking at nap rooms and nap pods in an innovative way? How can those be used as separators? What are people doing with nutrition that is different from others? The availability of it, the location of it, the offerings that they're providing, and kind of the Alter G and the innovative different kinds of recovery, the sensors and wearables, and how the recording for feedback, the instant feedback after a practice, and how athletes are doing and performing, and then the technology that really gives all that information and allows you to continue to build that person physically. And then again, just to touch on the nutrition side of things, whether it's a drink station, a Gatorade bar, a dining facility, just the importance of those being available and kind of on the main path of where that athlete is going, to make sure that they're stopping there, that the facility is designed with the proper adjacencies in mind to make that a priority. And I think that another dimension of wellness is the financial aspect of it. And we touched a lot on the fact that not every single athlete is going to go, most athletes are not going to go pro. What are we promoting, and what spaces are we giving them to help them build their life after sports? At Minnesota, there was a leadership floor designated specifically to getting those athletes in, helping them understand what their steps are going to be after they graduate or after they leave that athletic program, to make sure that they're set up for success in their careers. Again, at St. Ambrose, a lot of those spaces were also designed in, the classroom spaces, the counseling spaces, kind of the leadership spaces, to continue to push those student athletes forward in the right direction. I spoke to it before, but one of the things as well is providing those larger classroom spaces, those flexible spaces that can be used for events. Somebody from a Fortune 500 company can come in, give a lecture. The athletes can fill the room and really take in and understand that knowledge. This facility also celebrates via graphics and other kind of sticky spaces, if you will, some of the successes of alum, and not just professional successes, but academic successes, leadership successes.
The visit, scripting the visit to campus or creating a choreographed visit to campus is critically important to your prospects. You need to be able to show how the facility is going to be used on a day-to-day basis. Again, it's that wow factor. You're recruiting both the student athletes and the parents, and creating a variety of spaces to make them feel comfortable and at home while they're on campus. So, this is an image of the University of Connecticut at the new performance center that supports soccer, baseball, softball, and lacrosse. So this is one of the first images that they'll see at the beginning of their tour with the coach. One athletic director said, we present our facility as a student athlete's home base. So how can we provide everything in one spot so that student athlete isn't going across campus for a variety of activities, and they can maintain location as much as possible, whether it's through practice of their sport or study of their academics. So this is one of the images that they'll first see when they come into the building here for their baseball tour, looking at Huskies in the pros. So being able to kind of aspire to certain levels of play and understand you have the potential to achieve that if you come to the University of Connecticut. And then the coach will take them on a tour throughout the rest of the Performance Center, taking them through strength and conditioning, which is a huge help for the university to be able to free up some space through other facilities on campus. And specifically to the baseball visit, on the left-hand side of the screen here, you can see the corner of the Performance Center, some glass up there on that corner, which is the coach's office. So at the conclusion of the tour for the baseball athletes, the coach will bring them up to his office with the blinds drawn, and he'll take his remote control, and the blinds will come up, and it'll be at night at this time. And then with his phone, he'll turn those Musco lights on to have that aha moment and kind of a nice technology type moment showing that the university is investing in their facilities for sports and investing in those student athletes.
So sort of putting all that together is really creating what is that one-stop shop. Again, we've got all the sticky space, we got the locker space, we got the performance space, we got the cultural space, and then it's maximizing all of your resources to do that. At Minnesota State University Moorhead, it's incorporating what is the reality of 150,000 square feet, housing their health and physical education department, housing all of their intramurals, and then housing the entirety of their athletic department, which sounds like a challenge on the surface, and it is, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to show all of these prospective student athletes and to show your current student athletes how much of your culture and how that all permeates. It's by locating at your front door an athletic program that is your human performance lab. It's taken some of those trends that Blaine was hitting on, from an Alt-G treadmill to a hydro suite, and putting those up front to show, a lot of your student athletes are going to be in academic health science programs, and to give them that perspective. It's to meet them at the front door with all of your office suites. And then it's similar to Gustavus. It's taking that core and creating the two dedicated pieces, and then really creating the right size performance venues and practice venues for everyone. It's knowing that you need about 3 wood courts to really make a successful athletic department as you start to blend men's and women's basketball, starting up when your volleyball program's closing. But now throw in a physical education department that needs to utilize that space to teach their coaching classes. Add in your intramurals. And it's just creating sort of those multifunctional spaces that can make this a one-stop shop now for all of your users. And then again, just to resonate it's creating all of those sticky spaces so that the lounge that is for the students day to day becomes that pre-function space for your major sports events and ties directly into the entry for your performance arena, and really knitting all of that together. Or it's taking another lounge, and again, in the pre-COVID world, we had the opportunity to do double headers within Division II. That doesn't happen very much anymore. But when we had that opportunity, what did you do with all those folks at halftime? You need a space to host your VIPs, to cater to them so that you can build up that piece. And so really making those spaces fit within those tight within these tight constraints can be that opportunity that can be successful for your institution.
You know, in a one-stop shop might mean something different to different levels in college. This is a great example of a really fun project that we worked on for Madison College in Madison, Wisconsin. This doesn't necessarily have that one-stop shop, perhaps, that a Division I school might have. It doesn't have dining, for example, but it's got a lot of stuff that enables their athletes to come and spend some time here. The building down the first baseline houses a locker room. It's got a coach's office, a training room, and it also has those spectators amenities, concessions, and restrooms. So, you know, their athletes can show up. They can change at the facility. They can spend some time in the locker room that also has a lounge in it. They can hang out there, right? And they can go to their practice and game, and then they can change and be on their way from there. But they have the ability to just spend more time at the facility and create more of an atmosphere with their teammates. Same thing at Iowa State University here at the Cyclone Sports Complex, where it's a multi-sport venue. The university took advantage of some land that they had and a need that they had for new facilities for their track team, their soccer team, and their softball team. So we were able to provide those building elements, the core of the facility. So they had quick access to each of their respective fields. They had their locker rooms, they had team meeting spaces, coaches' offices, training, batting cages, and we're also at the core of that still able to provide for those spectator amenities as well. And again, great first impression opportunities with Here You Show Up, and everything that you need right there.
Yeah, that's great. And then, as Jason mentioned, not every one-stop shop is created exactly the same. There's a different level of what you can incorporate into a facility. I look at the Athletes Village at the University of Minnesota and just think about all the different offerings. This is kind of one of the main entrances at the lobby for all athletes. This is an academic and tutoring center for all athletes. On the lower level of this building is a dining hall for all athletes. This is a basketball practice facility. This is another basketball practice facility. Adjacent to all of that is their football performance center with the lounge that connects to the indoor turf. And then there obviously is the indoor turf. Think about the baseball field that's close by. Think about the track field that's close by. And all the inner workings of these things is really just all about maximizing the day of the athlete, maximizing the efficiency of their time. And all those seconds that are not used for traveling to a facility 5 miles away or 2 miles away, start to add up with the amount of times they need to use that facility. So what else do they have time for now? How much more can they study film? How much more can they be in community with their teammates? I think that is the real heart of that one-stop shop. I don't see any questions in the Q&A unless I'm looking at the wrong window, but this is the opportunity for you all to ask questions, unless we just answered everything along the way, which we probably didn't. This is that moment.
Blaine, will you bounce back to the 3 questions we started out with?
Absolutely.
Ask your peers. Certainly doesn't have to be a question, but we'd love to know your answers. Anything you think we missed, or type of smaller projects. We operate at all different scales, Michael. From junior college through D1. We also right now are focusing on a large portion of our work on planning. Just like we saw in the economic downturn of 2008, we've very much seen that come into our our sort of scope of work right now. Most of you probably don't follow the Architectural Billings Index, which is a report that measures how much work architects are seeing come in their doors. And we're finally seeing an uptick in that, which is fantastic. It had been almost historically low for all of 2020, but now we're starting to see that tick up. So yeah, we offer all types of projects. So, I think Timothy, community has a huge impact on experience. The Mount Marty project we showed actually utilizes two outside vendors. We utilize Great Life Fitness there, as well as Avera. And you're giving prospective student athletes the ability to, one, get more for their dollar, meaning the institution gets more for their dollar, but they see a lot of those programs that they're going to go to in the future. And so at those pieces, there's a bricks and mortar cost, but there's also operations. It allows institutions that are looking to leverage their resources to really gain traction by not having to buy all their fitness equipment, by allowing other prospective high schoolers to come into their institution. So that Avera Health is the other partner. They're running a athletic training, not physical training program. And so they're coaching prospective student athletes, and Mount Marty is reaping the benefits of having them in their facility every day, seeing what they're offering, watching their student athletes perform. So yeah, it can be a tremendous impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom, that's a great touch on the performance facility itself, but then there's also the impact of that community in the venue, right? How important is it when an athlete runs out onto the playing surface and it's crickets versus a community that's behind them, that's loud, that's cheering, that's bought into the direction that they're going? I think that has a significant impact.
Your community is a part of your culture. That culture aspect that we were talking about, they're a huge part of that.
I'm going to jump to Glenn's question. She's quicker to answer them than to type them back out. When you have limited resources and space, it's planning. It's knowing and understanding how can you maximize every last bit. Again, to go back to the Moorhead precedent, that's 150,000 square feet of building, and we have an entire Division II athletic program. And we have one of their largest academic programs in that building. It's taking the 6 to 7 classrooms you need for your football program so that you can break out all of your team rooms. And it's balancing those with all of the classrooms that your academic programs need. So from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, those are all academic classrooms. From 3 till 7, they're academic. After that, they can bounce back, or they're athletic, sorry. After that, they can bounce to intramurals. They can be multifunctional. Is it more economical to remodel versus to add on? Certainly depends what you're building. Typically, it's cheaper to renovate the space. Again, we're seeing new construction. Well, it can range from $250 on up to $500, but renovation, you're going to be in more of that $150 to $250 range, depending on what you're looking at. And then Jake, just to keep going, time frame, planning effort for a single building, 2 to 3 months. Planning effort for athletic complex, maybe a few more months, maybe 4 to 5 months. And then from there, really you go planning, you go fundraising, and then you go on to construction. And construction includes design, production, and then the physical construction. And those are very much variable on what project type you're looking to do.
Yeah. And I would add in too, Tom, it may be part of the last question that was answered, but we're right now in a space study with a major Division I university. The issues are not necessarily that nobody has enough space, but they don't feel like it's being maximized or utilized as efficiently as it could. And that includes a kinesiology department, that includes a physical education department, that includes the athletic department, many different sports.
The recreation.
So, recreation as well. So right now we're sitting down with all of those separate users and really listening and understanding how they're using their space, what they truly need, and just finding those ways to maximize that limited space, that limited budget, to continue to, because the needle has to keep moving, and finding those ways to find those spaces, to find those branding opportunities, to find those renovation opportunities without the major flashy project additions that happens all the time. Absolutely.
And then Jason, your question about funding, funding is very much tied to the institution. If we're at a public institution, it could be a student referendum, or most likely if it's an athletics-based project, it would be sort of that foundation. A lot of public institutions are tied to the legislative branch, sorry. And so they're asking for funding dollars. So a lot of athletic projects throughout some states are disguised as academic projects. On a private level, very much fundraising based. You're doing capital campaigns to find the funds. We do say that giving begets giving, meaning no gift is too small. Obviously, we want the biggest gift, but it's building the traction of giving as a premise for your institution, and focusing in on all giving being valued, and then listening to sort of those fundraising streams as you develop the project. Sorry, I was trying to read the New Mexico College question real fast.
You're getting questions that I'm not seeing, so.
Oh, these are in the chat, Blaine.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
just run with them. Oh yeah, there they are. Sorry.
Yeah, building code questions, we can certainly help you out with those. Every municipality is going to have a different authority of jurisdiction, or AHJ is a common term folks use in the industry. And so you really need to dive into what your municipality is telling you. Municipalities range from code books that were developed in 2009, some folks still hold on to their own dedicated state of Minnesota, state of New York, state of Florida, Texas. They have their own codes. And I would have to look into New Mexico specifically to understand what you're looking at, but that's definitely something we can provide assistance with. Well, that was the balance of our information. But just to sort of close, this was a very very informative outreach process for us. We ask these questions on every campus. But I don't think we ever have taken the moment to sit down and review answers, and to review answers across all of these different perspectives. And so that's been a great benefit to our own internal work. So greatly appreciate your time today. As Dana mentioned, certainly check us out on our social media streams. We'll be putting this Zoom out there. We'll be putting out our kit of parts as well. And if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you, and love to just start the conversation and start thinking about all the possibilities on your campus.
Absolutely. Greatly appreciated your time this morning.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.